It is a new era here in Defiant Wrestling and a very, very uncertain time indeed. So we have an enormous amount to discuss coming out of a shocking weekend in Sunderland. The ReLoaded podcast is on the air. Dave Bradshaw here with you and James R. Kennedy with me as well. How are you doing? Have you recovered from what happened at the end of Magnificent Seven? I'm still not entirely sure if I'm through this yet.
To be honest, I'm still in shock, Dave. I genuinely am. Not only with the conclusion of the pay-per-view, but also several other things that happened throughout the night as well. But we would be remiss if we didn't talk about what happened right at the end, because what a way to sign off for the Magnificent Seven. We have a new champion. And I'm going to let you do this one because I cannot quite fathom who it is. Well,
look, I mean, the first thing to say, I think, is thank you to Rampage. Rampage has been a tremendous servant to Defiant Wrestling for the past couple of years, 2.5, 3 years, whatever it is now, and for most of the past year as champion. We wish Rampage well in whatever he chooses to do next in the wrestling world. But the end of one era is the beginning of another. And Rory Coyle, I still can't quite believe I'm saying this. Rory Coyle is the new Defiant World Champion. He is the man now who represents this company on the world stage.
It's astounding. And I know, Bradshaw, between that and also this amazing, grand celebration that we have coming up later on this very broadcast, an interview with the Defiant Wrestling Tag Team Champions. The new champs are in the house, the SCC. Between Coyle and the SCC interview, you must be losing your marbles, my friend.
Well, it wasn't. I mean, we recorded the interview of SCC at the weekend as well, and it wasn't my favourite day ever, I will grant you. And I took 24 hours, to be honest, off social media. I just needed to regather my thoughts. But I've found a way around it a little bit. And what I've done is, I on the advice of my therapist, I have come up with a list of reasons to be cheerful, reasons to be optimistic in dark times. And there were things that happened over the course of this weekend, both at Magnificent Seven and at Loaded, that were reasons to celebrate, I think. And I've got a list of 5. So I think what we'll do, rather than dwell on Rory Coyle and Rampage yet, we are going to talk more about that later on the show today. But let's talk about some happier things first. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I'm guessing. I'm just assuming here. I don't want to make an ass out of either you or I. That's not the phrase. How does it go? Never mind. I don't want to make an ass out of anyone, but I am going to assume, Dave Bradshaw, that top of that list of things that you're grateful for is sitting next to me every week in Defiant Wrestling, am I right?
No, that's not on my list of 5 at all, unsurprisingly. Although I could have added to the list that you now only have 10 days to give me the Commentator of the Year trophy that you now owe me, and that you had, a month to give to me. But already you've eaten into 20 of those. So I'll look forward to getting that in the next 10 days. But no, that is not on my list. You want item number 1?
Go on then.
Item number 1, things to be happy about coming out of this weekend in Defiant. Benji.
Ugh.
Benji, the winner of the Magnificent Seven match. Who saw that coming?
Not me. I'll tell you that for free. Not me. I cannot believe. This is what I referenced earlier on. Rory Coyle was a shock. But arguably there was no bigger shock for me than Benji winning the Magnificent Seven. My money, as you know, Dave Bradshaw, my money all along was on MJF. I said it at several points throughout that match that man would be the winner. And I still think it's unfair that Sunderland constantly distracted him.
Really? I mean, I'll tell you what, MJF, talk about a way to make a first impression. MJF came in here to Defiant Wrestling for his debut on Saturday night, thinking that he owned the place already with this swagger, insulted everyone in the crowd, thinking he's better than everyone there, thought it was a foregone conclusion that he was going to win the Magnificent Seven match, and it didn't happen. It absolutely didn't happen. Benji, I mean, none of us called it. I called Man Like DeReese, that didn't go to plan. Who did you call? Goodness knows who you called.
MJF.
Oh, did you? Yeah, all right.
No, it was Conor Renshaw, but, as the match wore on, I was impressed by MJF, and, as the broadcast journalist that I am, I happened to catch a word with him before he left Sunderland, and MJF told me, James, all that happened was I spotted this girl in the front few rows, and I was so overtaken with horror at how ugly she was that I became distracted, and then Benji stole the victory.
I'm not at all surprised that you and MJF have become pals.
Well, you just have to look at the guy. He's the future of pro wrestling. He's going to do huge things in All Elite Wrestling. And if it wasn't for those idiot fans in Sunderland at the Magnificent Seven, we would have a Magnificent Seven briefcase holder worthy of bowing down to. But no, we have Benji.
What's wrong with Benji? Benji's great. Benji is just about the most popular young man on the Defiant roster.
Oh, wash your mouth out with soap.
Have you heard the reactions he's getting? It's unbelievable, the support for Benji. Wherever we go.
That's more a reflection on the people than anything else. They have no taste. I had a sleepless night on Saturday. We'll get to that later on as well. But, Benji, here's a thing, Bradshaw. If you watch Loaded, and everyone around the world watched Loaded, they will know that Benji, he might have one next week because he goes one-on-one with Conor Renshaw, and that Magnificent Seven briefcase, it's on the line.
Yeah, now Benji, I love Benji loads. I think he's incredible. I'm fully on board with most of the Defiant fans in my support of Benji, but it's not smart. It's really not smart to do that, because what he's allowed himself to get goaded into a match against Conor Renshaw, who he's just beaten among 6 others in that Magnificent Seven match. Renshaw has somehow conned Benji into granting him not just a one-on-one match on Loaded this Sunday, but a match with that briefcase on the line. So after going through everything he went through on Saturday night in Sunderland, Benji could lose it all immediately 8 days later just up the road in Newcastle.
And he will lose it all. Did you see the size difference between Conor Renshaw and Benji as they stood face to face? Benji's only hope is to wallop Renshaw with that Magnificent Seven briefcase and pin him 1, 2, 3 very, very quickly if he doesn't knock him out. Because I have a feeling that coming up on Loaded, we may have a new possessor of that briefcase, and his name could be Conor Renshaw.
Well, if Benji were to keep the Magnificent Seven briefcase past this coming weekend, and stranger things have happened. Certainly him winning the thing in the first place was pretty strange by most people's reckoning. What do you think is the path forward for Benji in terms of who does he challenge? What title does he set his sights on?
Oh, none of them. If he's smart, he goes to General Amin and he says, General Manager, you've made a terrible mistake. I didn't even deserve to be in this match in the first place, and there's no way in hell that I deserve to hold this briefcase and have the ability to cash it in for any championship. Please take it back. Maybe send it over to the States, to MJF. Give it to someone else. I don't deserve it. I can't give a serious answer for that because I'm still in shock, Bradshaw, that Benji even won the damn thing.
Well, all right. Shall we move on, and I'll give you my second of 5 reasons to be cheerful.
Oh, you were serious about this list, weren't you?
Yeah, that was number 1. You didn't agree with me on that. I wonder how many out of 5 you'll agree with me on. But anyway, number 2, Justin Sizem proving at the weekend that justice can be served. The superhuman getting a second straight victory over John Bad Bones Klinger. Now, granted, what happened after the match was less than ideal, but for Sizem at least, point proven.
Well, yeah, definitely. It was revenge for Sizem at the Magnificent Seven. And did you see there were still marks on his face? He was nowhere near 100% healed from that attack, barbaric attack is what I'm going to call it, back at Unstoppable from John Klinger, which put Justin Sizem on the shelf. Great return for Sizem. The badness does whatever the badness wants. John Klinger is the most dangerous man in European wrestling, Dave. And not only did Justin Sizem find that out at Unstoppable, but so did one Simon Miller. And here's a question for you, Bradshaw. You ready?
I'm ready.
What the hell was Miller thinking? He's office. He's the assistant general manager. Why would Simon Miller want to poke his nose into Klinger's business?
Well, for that reason. because he has a responsibility. He's the assistant to the general manager. Him and Adam Foster have been tasked with managing this John Klinger problem. And it's a problem that has now directly affected Simon Miller, because we saw Miller, who, to his credit, came to defend the timekeeper after Klinger grabbed that timekeeper, which he had no business doing whatsoever. Miller took responsibility for the fact that a member of his staff was being attacked, came out here and said to Klinger, you've got to stop. But unfortunately, Miller's paid the price. We saw the attack on the already injured shoulder, and it's hard to know now. I haven't been able to get an update from Simon Miller or from General Amin's office about what the situation is in terms of Simon Miller's health, and whether this shoulder injury that's already had him on the shelf for 8 months, remember, whether that's now been extended further if more damage has been done to it by Klinger. But yeah, big result for Sizem, but it does beg the question, doesn't it? What can now be done to contain this growing problem that is John Klinger?
I really don't see the problem here, if I'm honest. Yes, John Klinger is dangerous, the most dangerous man in European wrestling, as I said. Yes, he is prone to these fits of extreme anger, and yes, people do get seriously hurt. However, John Klinger is one of the finest professional wrestlers on the planet today. Defiant Wrestling Management must find a way to harness his skills, make that anger work for Klinger. I think problem puts a negative stamp on this, quite frankly. I think Defiant should be looking at this as, wow, we have a killer on our hands. We have someone who could take us to the next level. They have to get behind John Klinger and give the badness the opportunities that he deserves. Give him an outlet for that anger.
No. There's one thing to be an angry man and to use that aggression to be an impressive professional wrestler. But the moment you start deliberately injuring wrestlers, the moment you start assaulting non-wrestlers, like he did at the weekend, we can't stand for that. There's no self-respecting wrestling company on the planet that will let that go unanswered. If someone's going to attempt to assault a timekeeper, not a wrestler, a timekeeper, there's no one who can stand for that.
No, but the timekeeper, again, broadcast journalist, I did some digging, and I found out, Dave, that very timekeeper, he was out by 2-3 seconds for each match, and CageMatch.net, they were furious with him. So, I think that John Klinger deserves, he did the bidding of the biggest wrestling database on the internet by kicking that timekeeper up the arse and telling him, you do a bloody better job, son, otherwise we're going to slap you around.
Oh, so that's a legitimate type of performance review, is it? To try to just assault someone if they're not doing their job to your satisfaction?
Well, that's what I do to my servants and people like that. These people have a role to play. And people like John Klinger have a role to play. His role is to enter that ring and do damage, and he does it very, very well.
All right, I'm not going to agree with you, am I? Let's, before my mood sours, let's go to the third thing. The third reason to be cheerful about Defiant Wrestling, despite the Rory Coyle era in which we live. You want the third one?
Okay, go on.
We're 0 for 2 so far in agreeing, aren't we, I think?
What a surprise. Are you really shocked by that? Let's be honest here.
In no way am I, but here's one. Surely we can agree on this, right? What a debut weekend, 2 matches in fact, for Laura Di Matteo. Now she is someone who has seized an opportunity that was put at her feet and has grabbed it with both hands. Kanji, the women's champion, injured at the last minute, unable to defend on Saturday night. That's another interesting conversation, by the way. But Laura Di Matteo stepping in, taking her place in a non-title 3-way match against Lana Austin and Lizzie Styles. And then she not only won that, but then won on Loaded the following night as well. So a double victory in her debut weekend. Laura Di Matteo looks like she is going to be a player in the women's division.
Hold the phones. You and I actually agree with something on this 5-point list. But you're right, Bradshaw. Laura Di Matteo, she made a huge impact. And, again, I did some digging and I found out that she was inspired by her uncle Robbie, who scored a wonderful goal for Chelsea against Middlesbrough many moons ago in the FA Cup final. And she's hit a shot from outside the box, if you like, and it has burst the net. Because at the Magnificent Seven, Laura Di Matteo, who's not really related to Roberto Di Matteo.
Oh, really? Yeah, I couldn't have guessed.
Well, I had you fooled there, didn't I? But
entirely, 100%.
I'm going to digress a little here and say, Laura Di Matteo, you're 100% right right about her, Dave Bradshaw. She came in, replaced the injured Kanji, and I've got a bone to pick with Kanji. Maybe this isn't the time to do it. I did say my piece on both Loaded and at the pay-per-view about that. I have my suspicions about what happened to her. But, all that aside, huge win for Laura Di Matteo. She was going up against two very dangerous women, Lana Austin, Lizzie Styles. This wasn't some rinky-dink little warm-up match for Di Matteo. This was huge business, and she has to have grabbed General Amin's attention. She beat Gia Adams on Loaded as well, repeating that feat from the pay-per-view. This is such an impactful way to get your start here in Defiant.
Well, Di Matteo is going to be in her third match here in Defiant this coming Sunday on Loaded. We now know Di Matteo will go one-on-one with Lana Austin, the woman she defeated in that three-way match on Saturday night. This time with no one else there, just a one-on-one match between them. And if Di Matteo can double down with a second victory over Lana Austin, who herself has been incredibly close to winning the Women's Championship on a couple of occasions, then Di Matteo really is going to start turning heads.
Well, again, Laura Di Matteo has come in here and she's not went up against anyone, who's been brought in as a tune-up match or anything like that. You're talking about Lana Austin and Lizzie Styles, two women who could rightly claim that they are in line to compete for the Defiant Women's Championship. And
they were number one. They were number one contenders.
Well, exactly. And Di Matteo now has put her name into the hat, and then she followed that up with that win over Gia Adams on Loaded. Huge. All I'm saying about Di Matteo is, it's not easy to make an impact here in Defiant. We've witnessed several wrestlers come in. They have 5-6 matches before they even come close to winning. She's 2 of 2 already.
Speaking of wrestlers who've come in, that leads me to my fourth reason to be cheerful. This is someone not who debuted, but returned this past weekend to Defiant. Jack Sexsmith was on Loaded, picked up a victory in singles action against Mickey the Dragon. But then Sexsmith had a hell of an announcement. He has now said that he is focusing his attention on the tag team division, and his partner, none other than the Queen of Queens, Visage. What about that? Visage and Sexsmith, what a tag team that has the potential to be.
Well, you want to talk about sexually frivolous, morally ambiguous. Visage and Jack Sexsmith making one hell of a statement. They're going to enter the Defiant Tag Team division. Visage, the Queen of Queens, okay, they didn't get the win in the Magnificent Seven, but Visage, they've been on a roll lately. Could this be the start of something beautiful? Could this be the start of something sensational? Could this be the start of the road that could take this new tag team all the way to the top? But it just so happens that Dave Bradshaw's favourite gruesome twosome, the SCC, they are the Defiant Tag Team champs. But, stay tuned for more from them, folks.
Yeah, well, Sexsmith and Visage will start their quest in the Defiant Tag Team division this Sunday at Loaded. They have now been announced for their debut match as a team. They're going to take on the Anti-Fun Police, the team of Drake and Los Federales Santos Jr., this Sunday, fresh off their embarrassment in the latter stages of the Magnificent Seven match. So Sexsmith and Visage with an opportunity to hit the ground running really this Sunday.
And going out on a limb as well, you have to believe that Visage and Sexsmith are everything the Anti-Fun Police despise about Defiant Wrestling. So that's going to be one to keep your eye on.
Yeah, definitely two teams with very diametrically opposed worldviews, let's put it that way. All right, last one. You ready? Number 5. 5 reasons to be cheerful. Number 5 is this. Coming back to Loaded this week, David Starr. The product is back after being temporarily put on the shelf by that backstage assault from Gabriel Kidd, and he will return this weekend. Presumably, he's going to have some words to say, at the very least, to Gabriel Kidd.
Well, yeah, that definitely has to be David Starr's motivation. Gabriel Kidd was the one who put Starr out of the game, ruined that match that Starr wanted so badly, a competitive one-on-one exhibition almost, with the prestigious one Joe Hendry. We saw Hendry and Gabriel Kidd go to a time limit draw at the Magnificent Seven.
And then what happened?
Well, go on, tell everyone.
Well, Joe Hendry wanted 5 more minutes. The crowd wanted 5 more minutes. It looked like the referee was going to grant that request. And Gabriel Kidd decided that he couldn't take any more and he left.
No, that's just that's twisting the truth, Bradshaw. That's what that is.
What have I said that's not true there?
Well, it's a 20-minute time limit draw. Rules are rules. Gabriel Kidd is the kind of athlete who sticks to the rules. In the confines of a wrestling match, inside that ring, he will stick to the rules. Okay, he can be a bit hot-headed outside of it, as we saw with David Starr, but inside that ring, Gabriel Kidd is 100% focused on towing the line. It's not his fault that the time limit expired. Hendry wanted an extra 5 minutes. Suddenly, all these idiots in Sunderland were going, 5 more minutes, and let them fight, and all that sort of stuff. They're not in charge. They are not in charge, and because General Amin or Simon Miller or the assistant to an assistant Adam Foster, none of those men came out to extend the match, so Gabriel Kidd left.
Yeah, he's a real stickler for the rules, isn't he, old Gabe?
Oh, yes, 100%. He is the future of this business, and you do not get to the top by being a cheat, let me tell you. Sometimes you have to break the rules, yeah, I'll give you that. But at the end of the day, you have to toe the line and follow the rules, and that's exactly what Gabriel Kidd did.
Sorry, so either what is it? Sometimes you have to break the rules, or rules are rules and you have to abide by them. You've just contradicted yourself in the space of about 10 seconds.
What is it I always say? Context. That's what matters the most here. It's a contextual situation, and Gabriel Kidd analysed what was happening, didn't think an extra 5 minutes would do him any favours. He had nothing to prove, so he left, opened a cold beer, hit the gym, whatever he likes to do in his downtime, that's really up to him. All I know is on the subject of David Starr, there's a target on the back or chest or face or anywhere on Gabriel Kidd's body because the product, he'll be out for revenge.
Now, in the interest of focusing on the positives, which is what I'm trying to do here, I will say this, I will do something rare and give credit where it's due to Gabriel Kidd. Despite his blatant cowardice at the end of the match, during that 20 minutes, he hung with Joe Hendry in a way that absolutely he wouldn't have been able to a couple of years ago. Because that actually, it wasn't a brawl. We said this on the show at the time. We were expecting a fight between those two. And clearly Gabriel Kidd came to show that he was able to compete with Joe Hendry as an equal in a wrestling match, which is no mean feat because Joe Hendry, as we know, has represented his country in the Commonwealth Games at amateur wrestling. So for Gabriel Kidd, for large portions of that match, to stay in there and go toe-to-toe with Joe Hendry was very impressive, and as much as I might not like the guy, does show his development as a professional wrestler. It does,
because several years ago, as you say, Gabriel Kidd would have been well in over his head against the prestigious one. Think back to when Joe Hendry was our champion and what Gabriel Kidd was living through at that time with Prince Amin. Not the general manager, General Amin, but Prince Amin. You know, it was a terrible time for Kidd, but he has grown into his own man, and Joe Hendry found out firsthand at the Magnificent Seven why Gabriel Kidd is the future of this industry, why he's going to have so many potential suitors over the next 6 to 9, maybe 12 months. It's only a matter of time before Gabriel Kidd becomes a world heavyweight champion. Whether that happens under the jurisdiction of Defiant Wrestling, well, that's really up to the people in charge. But if it were up to me, I'd be pushing this guy all the way to the top. I would. I'd be getting behind Gabriel Kidd, much as I referenced earlier on with John Bad Bones Klinger. You know, get behind these athletes who have a primal instinct to win. That's what Gabriel Kidd has.
You know what? After those, that's the end of my 5 things, and I'm feeling better. I'm actually feeling a bit better. That strategy worked. There are reasons to be optimistic and excited as we go into Loaded this weekend, despite that huge cloud that's hanging over us. But I do think at this point in the show, we are now going to have to address that in a bit more detail. So I think the mood might be about to sour slightly. I don't think we can avoid it any longer, though. What does it mean? What does it mean for the future of this company, for Rory Coyle to be our champion? Where do we go from here as a promotion?
Well, I said earlier on, Bradshaw, that Benji winning the Magnificent Seven briefcase was a shocker. That's more of a personal thing for me. You know, I didn't like that. A lot of people did. I personally didn't like it. But I think we can all agree that this is a collective nightmare for everyone involved in Defiant Wrestling, that this beast, this nightmare, Rory Coyle, is the new champion. I've heard this man called twisted, psychotic, maniacal, strange, weird, whatever descriptor you want to use for Rory Coyle, the last true sick boy. Only one matters: champion. He beat an alpha male in Rampage to do it, and I'm still dumbfounded by what I saw. And also on that note, we didn't really hear anything from Coyle on Loaded, and I'm going to be interested to see if you agree with me on this, but that almost unsettles me, and here's why. Last Saturday at the Magnificent Seven, it was his magnum opus. But every great artist, be they filmmaker, musician, sculptor or otherwise, they want to follow one masterpiece with another. Where does this story go next? You know, that's the million-dollar question here. Yes, Rory Coyle is the champion, but what is next?
Well, what I think is interesting is that you're not the only one who's unsettled. Far more importantly, the people who are unsettled are the Defiant board of directors, because they made a very unusual intervention this past week. If you saw Loaded on Sunday, it opened with a message from General Amin, which he had basically been instructed to give by the board, who are clearly nervous about having Rory Coyle as our champion. Amin actually said two things, by the way. The first thing he said was that Lucky Kid is going to be reinstated, if you like. Apparently they've resolved this issue with the restraining order, and Lucky Kid is going to get an opportunity at Martin Kirby in the Internet title at Lights Out on April 17th. So that's some big news, but we're not going to talk about that right now, other than to acknowledge the fact that it happened. The main thing I want to talk about is the second thing Amin had to say, which is that he is going to address this issue of Rory Coyle being our champion, and he's going to do it this Sunday at the very beginning of Loaded.
I can't wait to see that, because there's a lot of pressure on the general manager right now. He had a champion in Rampage, a man that you could rely on to sign autographs, to shake hands, to always show up on time. Rampage is the kind of professional wrestler who is the first in the building and the last to leave. He will represent your company better than anyone else, and that has become abundantly clear over the past almost 12 months that Rampage held that title.
Over now. That's over now.
It's over,
yeah.
You're right, and none of us can believe it, and that's why I asked the question, where do things go from here? Because Rampage has fought through injury after injury, challenger after challenger, and then one man, one nightmare came along, and Rampage, he was the one to succumb to Rory Coyle's sick fantasies, and now we have a new champion, and now this is a fresh chapter for Defiant Wrestling. Rory Coyle is the new face of this company.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it sends a shiver down the spine, doesn't it? To say that Rory Coyle is going to be the face of this company. I mean, how long can that be allowed to stand? I don't know how you can possibly, just from a corporate point of view even, or just from a marketing point of view, you can't put Rory Coyle on the posters. I mean, it's just not plausible, is it?
Coyle is a man who lawlessness is what he abides by. You know, Rampage, as I said, he is the kind of man who will represent Defiant Wrestling better than almost anyone around. Coyle doesn't seem interested in that. All Coyle wants to do, seemingly, is get inside the head of everyone around him and pollute their brains with his twisted visions for the future. But the thing that gets me, Bradshaw, is every single thing that Rory Coyle has promised or said has come true. He ran Primate out of Defiant Wrestling. He took the Defiant World Heavyweight Championship away from the alpha male around here. Everything he says comes true. It's a nightmare that we just can't wake up from.
Yeah, we've had a question on this, actually, from one of our regular listeners, Kieran at Prestige Trio. He says, who can stop Rory Coyle? Since he's come back / debuted, he's done everything he said he would. And that's right, Kieran. That is absolutely right. As you say as well, James, he's made a point of targeting Primate, took him out. He's made a point of targeting Rampage, took him out, and in the process became Defiant World Champion. So he's starting to develop this aura that anyone he targets is doomed. And if that becomes the case, even if it just becomes the perception in people's minds, then he has more power over this company than maybe any champion we've ever had. And that is when you've got someone with his sick mind, that is an incredibly scary proposition.
Sick mind is a gross understatement. This Rory Coyle, I think, almost gets off on the idea. I'm not going to paint myself as a genius for noticing that everything he said would come true has come true. I think Rory Coyle loves the fact that after the fact, you, I, the listeners, Defiant Wrestling management, everyone involved in this, they're starting to piece together the puzzle that he built, that he created. And it's almost intoxicating. It drives me crazy almost to think of a future with Rory Coyle at the helm.
All right. I don't think I can talk. I don't think I can take talking any more about this. So I think we'll have to stop there. But clearly, it is going to be a very, very interesting episode of Loaded this Sunday and every Sunday, 8 o'clock UK time on the Defiant YouTube channel. It will start this Sunday, as we said, with General Amin, who is scheduled to address the situation of Rory Coyle as Defiant World Champion. Now, speaking of things we can't put off any longer, unfortunately, as we discussed last week, despite my objections, you chose to invite the Defiant Tag Team Champions onto the show this week as our interviewees.
Oh, it's wonderful, isn't it? I mean, the SCC, the South Coast Connection, Ashley Dunne, Kelly Sixx, they wanted to come on to this podcast and they wanted to celebrate their coronation as the new Defiant Tag Team Champions. Dave, you weren't up for it. You vetoed that idea and said, no way in hell were those guys coming on. And
yeah, I think my exact words were, I would rather eat my own eyeballs.
Oh, well, you may live to regret those words, because a certain somebody went above your head and decided that, yes, the SCC should be here on the ReLoaded podcast. So shall we get to it? Can we do it? Please, let's get to it. This amazing celebration.
I think that the first thing to say, obviously, is that since that was agreed, and I say agreed, that they're going to be guests on the show, they then had a defence on Loaded of the tag team titles, their first defence, where they defeated the dynamic duo, the Billington brothers, for the second time, but much like the first time, they had to cheat to do so. So I wanted to address that with them. You just wanted to join in this ridiculous celebration, and it went quite badly. Let's have a listen. All right, look, it's late. We're just on Sunday night. It's after Loaded. Apparently, we have another interview assignment here for the ReLoaded podcast. Dave Bradshaw here with James R. Kennedy, and we're delighted, over the moon, to be joined
wait a minute, Dave. That is not how you introduce the new Defiant Wrestling Tag Team Champions. We're talking about the South Coast Connection, Dave Bradshaw. Pick your voice up, man. Show some gratitude that these fine young men have joined us on the ReLoaded podcast. This is an open forum for them, not you.
Well, Kelly Sixx, Ashley Dunne, the South Coast Connection are here. Gentlemen, another victory, your first title defence tonight on Loaded against the dynamic duo. But of course, you couldn't do it by staying within the rules.
By staying within the rules. That's a particular set of words there, Bradshaw, isn't it? You watch wrestling over time and everyone kind of bends the rules, don't they? And we didn't mess with them that much. There's been a lot of people that have been a lot worse than us in history, yet you want to pick on us? You think about like the main events in Defiant, you think about the mid-cards in Defiant, you think about the openers, and then you look at us and you go, oh yeah, that's where I want to project my hatred towards. That's fine. If you want to pick on us like we're an easy target for you. I just want to let you know, Bradshaw, that me and Ashley Dunne, the South Coast Connection, we have the belt. We're going to keep the belt. We're going to beat these 6 months worth of experienced people like the dynamic duo. And we're going to carry on doing that. So why don't you bring us something a little bit more worthwhile?
Well, if they're so inexperienced and if you're so much better than them, then the question has to be asked, why did you need to cheat? A low blow, a chair shot, again, just like there was to win the titles. Ashley Dunne, and do you want to explain yourself? Because your tag partner hasn't.
Well, we clearly didn't cheat, did we? We didn't cheat, we just had to do what we had to do. You know? So, I mean, you can sit there all you want and be like, oh, you cheated, you did this, you did that. At the end of the day, we want to remain tag team champions, so we have to do what we have to do. Now, if you want to call it cheating, then fine, you call it cheating. But I would just say that it's just what had to be done, you know? As Kelly said, they're wearing some deco. What are they? They're not even... Are these... How is Marty even letting them in the ring looking like that?
Mate, like,
Lonsdale
boots, Primark tights, and I don't know, what are they, high spots knee pads? Like,
do you know who wouldn't like that?
Who's that?
Will wouldn't like that. If we were to wear Lonsdale shoes, Will would bend us over and spank our bums.
wait, bend us over, let's not talk about it.
Wait, Will.
Oh, hang on, Bradshaw, hang on. Now, Ashley Dunne and Kelly Sixx, they raise a valid point. You want to sit on your moral high horse and say they cheated? Well, they didn't cheat. The fact is, it doesn't matter how you get the job done. All that matters is you win, and I'm very sure that the aerial assassin, Will Ospreay, is very proud of these boys.
Really? You think so?
100%.
Well, they've certainly been using Will Ospreay's name to get themselves all over the place here in Defiant. It's arguably how they got the tag team title opportunity in the first place. So... Here's a question, Kelly Sixx. Are you at some point going to try and get somewhere on your own merit instead of on the coattails of your buddy?
On my own merit. You know what's real funny about the way the wrestling world works? Is that people work through the exact same channels that we work through, but they just don't acknowledge it. Do you know what we have the balls to do? Is sit out there and go, yeah, do you know what? Do you know how I got Taka Michinoku's number and went to fucking Kaientai Dojo in Japan? It's Will Ospreay. He gave me the number. Do you know what other people don't do? Is they don't acknowledge that. They're like, yeah, I did it on my own. You didn't. You did not at any point do that on your own. Everything in wrestling is based off the people you know and the people that you connect with. And the people we connect with, do you know what's funny about that? It's the fact that we literally display it to you. We lay it out to you. This is who helped us get here. If we were not good enough, we would not stay here. But we do stay here. How we get here is irrelevant. How we stay here is through talent. So come on, Bradshaw. Give me a little something other than Ospreay's your mate. You don't deserve it. Because the fact of the matter is, we cannot deserve it all you like, but if we didn't deserve it, we would not stay here in Defiant.
Look, no one is denying you have talent, and that's why everyone loved you until a few months ago when you started using Will Ospreay's name again and again and again to get places. You were getting perfectly far on your... What's your problem?
But where did that love get the South Coast connection? Really? Now, I don't want to speak for you young men, but quite frankly, since you've started, in Bradshaw's words, changing your attitude up a bit, what's happened? Success after success after success. You can't argue with success as much as you would like to, Bradshaw. You just cannot argue with it.
Are you their official spokesman? Ashley Dunne, you've gone quiet. What have you got to say for yourself?
As I said, we just had to do what we had to do. Like, we're both absolutely loving wearing the gold. You know what? I wore this in the bath the other day. It's amazing. It's you know what? It makes you feel a sense of purpose. You know, as Kelly said, you know, everyone's just kind of saying that they've done everything by themselves. And you know what? Sometimes it's fine to say, nah, this person helped us. This person helped us. Now, I know that we've tried to get through to Will many times. He's in Japan at the moment. He's a very busy dude. Okay, we haven't heard from him.
They do have phones in Japan.
They do have phones in Japan.
If he wanted to take your call, he could.
Different network, though.
Yeah, different network. I don't think they have, like, EE out there or something like that. Do they have O2 out there? Do you know, Bradshaw? Have you been to Japan, Bradshaw?
I haven't been to Japan.
No,
Bradshaw.
Instead, you're in Sunderland, yeah? You know, not quite Newcastle, it's Sunderland. But still, I'm sure at some point Will get back to us. I mean, he's busy in the New Japan Cup. He's busy doing this, he's busy doing that. We understand that. That's absolutely fine. But we're the champions. And I know you hate it so much, and it's such a shame. But guess what, Bradshaw? you're just going to have to deal with it, because we're going to be champions for quite a while.
I love that attitude, quite frankly. Now, I have managed tag teams before I became a broadcast journalist that lacked that killer instinct. They lacked that know-how that, yes, sometimes you have to use your connections to get ahead. I admire that from both you young guys, and what I would like to take the time to ask you is, unless Bradshaw has any other stupid questions, this might be the last one. We'll see. He'll think of something. What is next for the Defiant Tag Team Champions, the South Coast Connection? What is next for you guys? Come on, tell me. I'm eager to know. Come on, I can't wait. Tell me.
What's next for us? Really interesting question, because when you reach the top of the mountain, there's not an obvious way forward, because everyone below us has the objective of being the tag team champions, but we've hit that level. So where do we go now? I think it's quite obvious that we need to cement ourselves as the tag team champions. We need to go back, and I'm not afraid to do it. We're going to beat Aussie Open again. We'll beat anybody else they put in front of us again. We'll beat them over and over and over again, and the end result will be the fact that we want to make a statement, something that's memorable. Think Aussie Open, right? Fantastic wrestlers. I'll take nothing away from them. They've had 5-star matches week in, week out on Defiant, but how many of those do you remember? None of them. Literally none of them. And how many, wow, I'm getting a little bit carried away, so I do apologise. How many moments do you remember about the South Coast Connection?
I mean, think about it. Our debut against our boys in Swords of Essex.
Stole the show.
I mean, hey, our TLC match against the Hunter Brothers.
Stole the show.
Stole the show. We have so many moments where people remember. And, yeah, what about them? What did they... I mean, don't get me wrong, I said they're fantastic wrestlers, but what do you remember? I mean, I'm sure, Bradshaw, you'll think of something, because you always think of something.
Oh, you're certainly memorable. I've got one more question. Like, look, Marty Jones, first time you were facing... it's hilarious. Yeah, it's hilarious, isn't it? Marty Jones, the first time you faced the dynamic duo, got knocked off the apron. Charitably, I'll say it was an accident, but certainly what happened afterwards was that smirk on Kelly Sixx's face was disgusting. Then you faced Johnny Storm and Jody Fleisch. You show utter disrespect to two British wrestling legends. Now, I might not like whether you're tag team champions. That's not the point. The point is, you are the champions. You are representing this company. So can you please show some respect for British wrestling?
Well, I mean, people do the same thing, don't they, on every show? It's just like, yeah, let's have a big handshake and let's do a rematch. But why would me and Ashley shake hands with some people that we've already beat? Johnny and Jody, don't get me wrong, in their day they were the greatest people around, but in our day we're the greatest people around. They ask us for a match, we are not obliged to give them the match. It's literally the most basic thing in the world. If we are the best, people ask us for a match and we decide if we want to give it to them. They don't get to walk around going, yeah, let's have this rematch. We beat you. 1, 2, 3. There was no question about it. There was no tights held. There was no ropes held. There was no stuff in there that anything could be like construed in any bad way. We won 1, 2, 3. So why do we owe anything to them? Why do we owe anything to the dynamic duo?
We don't.
Ashley,
not at all.
Can you tell me, who do we owe anything to?
Oh, nothing. Nothing and no one at all. If we beat you, you go to the bottom of the pile. Why do you suddenly think that you can have a rematch? It just doesn't work that way. You know? I mean, could you imagine, say something like the Champions League, Man U beats someone, and then they go, oh, tell you what, let's have a rematch. And then if we win, we can... That doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. We beat you, you're at the bottom of the pile. That's how it works.
Well, that in no way answers my question. Can I go now?
Haven't you got to eat your own eyes?
What? It was a figure of speech.
I did a Twitter poll saying, should we be on your podcast or should you eat your own eyes? And the eat your own eyes won. Now,
by a long shot.
By a long shot as well. So I will speak to someone around here in the production company, and
so no wonder
we
you're
shall
laughing.
get a video of you
You're
eating
laughing
your own
because you have
eyes.
experience rigging votes, don't you?
Oh, come on, don't you bring that with your conspiracy theories. It's disgusting. Let it go, man. And someone, you, yes, yes, you, yes. get Dave Bradshaw a knife and fork, because I believe right here on the ReLoaded
Don't
podcast,
have to do that.
Dave Bradshaw, the voice of Defiant Wrestling, is going to eat his own eyes.
No, I'm not.
Yes, eat them.
Right, that's it. South Coast
those
Connection.
eyes.
Ashley Dunne.
Eat those
Kelly,
eyes.
will you be quiet?
Those eyes. Eat those eyes.
South Coast Connection, our tag team champions. You are never picking the guests again.
Oh,
ever.
this is great. I'm loving
Ever.
it.
Oh, wasn't that just excellent? I mean, honestly, I wish everyone listening to this podcast could have been there, Bradshaw, just to see your face.
It wasn't my favourite 10 minutes ever. I will say that, but it's over, and we never have to have them on the show again. As I said at the end there, by the way, at the end of that interview recording, you are never, ever, ever choosing the guests again.
You
Ever.
don't have the authority to decide that.
Well, I know a man who does. I'll talk to General Amin. I'm pretty sure he'll be on my side. Anyway, on that note, I think we will finish. Before we go, obviously, I want to remind you again about Lights Out. That's the next time we're with you on pay-per-view. It's going to be in Leeds, in Yorkshire, on April 17th. If you want to join us in person, there are tickets still available at wearedefiant.com/tickets. We already know that the internet title will be on the line as Martin Kirby defends against Lucky Kid, plus the return to Defiant for his third match. The man that gravity forgot, Pac, will be with us in Leeds on April 17th. And of course, if you don't want to be there in person but you want to watch online, you can stream all of the action on Access Defiant at access.wearedefiant.com. You can also, of course, catch the Magnificent 7 replay on there. And if you are a new customer, you get 30 days for free, but with no obligation whatsoever when you sign up. So make sure you sign up to Access Defiant. Good. Right. So it's interesting times with Rory Coyle as champion. And I say that's a bit of an understatement. But as we found, there are reasons to be cheerful, reasons to be excited. What exciting things do you have ahead in the rest of your week?
Oh, it's, just a day in my life is a year in the lives of so many others. Normally every week, Bradshaw, I come on here and I have a new lady friend to boast about, to brag about, but not so this week. And it's not because I'm single, by the way. No, I'm happy to announce that I am still seeing the one, the only, the beautiful Taylor Hanson. Can you believe it?
And how is she?
Oh, Taylor's doing great, although, I don't think she'll be going back to Sunderland anytime soon, because even though we've never been so happy in our personal lives, we did spend some time together in that northern dump for the Magnificent 7. And I have a bit of a gripe with the hotel we were staying at. When I woke up on the Sunday morning after the pay-per-view, I noticed that there were hairs all over the sink, and it looked for all the world like someone had been shaving. I can't believe. Right, I'm going to get up on a soapbox here and I'm going to just spit it out and tell you all the truth. I cannot believe that the hotel staff would let themselves into someone else's room and shave their face as they slept. It's borderline creepy. And Taylor and I, we demand answers. It's kind of random as well that the hairs were blondish, because I didn't even spot any of the staff with a beard, let alone a blonde one. Me and Taylor, we were stumped, Bradshaw, stumped.
There is so much to be stumped about by this entire situation, I agree. But I'm glad you're finding happiness. I'm glad someone has stuck with you for more than a week.
Well, long may it continue, because I've never been so happy. I've finally found a woman who understands me.
Do you think you understand Taylor?
Well, what are you trying to insinuate?
I'm just asking. It's a new relationship. There may be, things you haven't found out about each other yet.
Well, it's still early days. We're still at that flirting stage, a little bit of a peck on the cheek, holding hands in public, stuff like that. It hasn't went any further. And even if it had, I certainly wouldn't tell you or anyone listening to this podcast. Mind your own business.
Yes, you would. You come on here every week telling us about your latest exploits.
Yes,
in that regard.
But there are boundaries, and I will never cross them.
All right. Well, I look forward to an update next week because you won't be able to contain yourself, I'm sure. That's just about going to do it. How can people follow you on Twitter if they want to keep up with the latest in this ongoing romantic drama?
Well, I would invite them to mind their own damn business, but if you want to follow me on Twitter and find out anything about Defiant Wrestling or any other project I'm involved in, you can find me at Top Class Kennedy.
You can follow me on Twitter as well at Dave Bradshaw. You can follow Defiant Wrestling at Defiant Rest. That's Defiant WRES. And if you want to join the conversation on any of the things we've been talking about today, use the hashtag #WeAreDefiant. So just to recap, on Loaded this Sunday, it will be Benji against Connor Renshaw with the Magnificent Seven briefcase on the line. Laura Di Matteo will look to extend her winning streak against Lana Austin. Plus, the Anti-Fun Police will compete against the debuting team of Jack Sexsmith and Visage. And our general manager, General Amin, will kick off the show as he will address the Defiant fans with regard to our new champion, Rory Coyle. Pretty stacked show on Sunday night.
Oh, massive, massive. Loaded rolls on. We head towards Lights Out. Magnificent Seven in the rearview mirror, apart from the fact that Benji has the briefcase. This is a very exciting time to follow Defiant Wrestling.
All right, well, we will see you on Sunday, 8 o'clock UK time on the Defiant YouTube channel for Loaded. For James R. Kennedy, this is Dave Bradshaw saying thank you for listening, and we will see you again next week here on the ReLoaded podcast.